All right, so part 2 about the borderlines. I got cut off. It's so hard to narrow this stuff down. And I do like to talk a lot. So this is the perfect platform. I actually just submitted my TEDx video, so I'm really excited about that. I'll be finding out if they're going to use me this year to do a TEDx. So I'm really, really excited. So I want to keep pushing this stuff so that I can do what I really, really want to do. So I'm Olivia Reynolds with Healing Hearts Trauma. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I am spreading awareness and content, hopefully to help you either learn something about this stuff or to at least clear some of the stuff up about this stuff. So we've been talking about borderlines and the maladaptive behaviors of the borderline and what people assume to think and know about the borderline. Again, betrayal wounds. And my other videos that I want you to check out are going to be on emotion regulation, and then one whole segment on the mindfulness parts of DBT and dialectical and why it works so well, and learning kind of how to work through some of this stuff, healing steps, as well as the trigger wounds for trauma. That's a really, really important video. It is from a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which has some fantastic components to how to heal some of this, as well as Pete Walker, Surviving and Thriving Complex PTSD. And so I like to make that content video about how do we heal these wounds. When we talk about feelings, we feel it here. When we talk about these emotional wounds, like betrayal wound and rejection wound and abandonment wounds for people, whether they're narcissist, avoidant, anxious, any of them, we all have this wound. It happened from our caregivers. And each one of us react differently to how this betrayal wound manifests. Someone who's of the avoidant type or the narcissist type will act completely different to a betrayal wound or an abandonment wound or a rejection wound. Interestingly, you hear this all the time, how narcissists are they cry and they go for the new supply and they're manipulative and they're doing all this stuff. Well, borderlines do too. So that's why when I hear some of this stuff, I'm like, wait a second, are you sure you're not dealing with someone that's a borderline? Because borderlines can go quickly from I hate you to I love you and back and forth, right? They are really manipulative emotionally, right? Now, I have some of these traits, but I am not full blown. It's scary. But again, I could be a sociopath. I could be all these things. If I really read into it, like Zodiac and all that, I could be all this stuff. Let's not put ourselves in a box. My hopes by doing this stuff is to get you to just see, what are my core wounds? What do I really feel? Where did this come from? Our parents weren't perfect people. They couldn't have been. You got to think from Generation X and beyond, like our generation. I'm a Gen Xer. Like, we didn't talk about feelings. They had to work their asses off to survive through a lot of hard times. Women had no rights from the 50s and on. My mom was born in the 50s. So think about how hard she had to be and how hard her mother had to be just to survive and be seen, right? So there is probably a lot of need to cling on to your man and be the almighty housewife that, was addicted to love, more so just keeping her family alive, right? So borderlines are obsessed with the love. So are narcissists, right? So tomato, tomato. My goal is just to teach you that they're very similar. Very similar. It's just the borderline has more of the burn your house down, but so does the narcissist. If you hear all this narc abuse videos, I hear them all the time about how he's professing, threatening to kill himself. A true narcissist would not be affected by you. This is why I'm telling y'all to stop. Narcissists don't give a shit about no one but themselves. You're not going to see them crying and threatening to kill themselves because they're so full of themselves. They're not going to beg and plead. Now, borderline, on the other hand, depending on where she's swinging, avoidant or anxiously, you might see that. So here are some of the behaviors. You ready for this? So a pervasive pattern of instability in interpersonal relationships, self-image effects, and marked impulsivity beginning in early adulthood. Here, you have to have 5 of this criteria. Fear of abandonment. Unstable changes in relationships. Unstable self-image, struggles with self-identity and sense of self. Because again, they submerge themselves with somebody else. They're obsessed with love. They're going to wrap themselves around it just to have it, right? It's like a drug for them. Impulsive self-damaging behaviors could be spending, unsafe sex, substance abuse, reckless behaviors, but we've all done that. You don't have to be BPD. You can have trauma to do any of this stuff. You can have bipolar disorder to do any of this stuff. Any single one of us can do any of these behaviors. Suicidal behavior or self-injury, and very random mood swings, which, again, BPD is not the only one. If you look at every other mental health illness and their autism disorder, ADHD, another one. When I put those three together, actually BPD, ADHD, and CPTSD overlap with a lot of symptoms. Same thing with BPD, ASD, and CPTSD. Overlap. Sensory overload, get very anxious, very trepidatious, right? Someone that has ASD, their nervous system is hot-wired. And so I am definitely on the spectrum. When you talk about people who are highly intelligent and have moments to where they get very sensory overload in lots of ways, it can stimulate different parts of them that can make them, look at Asperger's. They could flip the lid and go crazy, right? They don't mean to. It's just their nervous system is overloaded. Now, would you call that person BPD? Probably not, because you don't see it. Again, just so many misdiagnoses. I wanted to become the Dr. House of psychoanalyzing because my dad, who also was a war veteran, which was diagnosed with probably 35 different diagnoses in the years of the veterans that I grew up with, it's just terrible. And he went through so much shit to just get on the right medicines and get normal and stable. And I'm just hoping that any one of you just learning this stuff can figure out, what is it that I'm dealing with? We don't have to label it, but what is it? Just learning our feelings and our needs and the emotional parts of ourselves and these core wounds that I'm going to talk about in another segment. Please watch it, because once we can learn those core wounds, we can tell someone hey, I'm really triggered when you go hours upon hours not talking to me. It's something I'm working through. But for whatever reason, my brain starts to tell me these things that are very illogical, right? But I just need this from you. It's not that big of a deal to meet for somebody, right? And the last two are constant feelings of self-worthiness and sadness, problems with anger and induce a frequent loss of temper and physical fights. Also can be an intermittent explosive disorder in children. We see it all the time, as well as conduct disorder. There are so many. The DSM is 19 million pages long. And then final stress-related paranoia, which is also an obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety disorder, as well as any of the other neurological disorders in the book. So, what do you want to diagnose them with? I could tell you all day long, we all fit in every box and angle. Now, to be diagnosed this, you only need 5. But if I took my trauma story and I told you some of the stories that I would fit most of these. But primarily, really, my core issues were trauma related. When you're a child, an innocent child, and you have been exposed to stuff and stories from these adults that are bearing all their shit onto us, any one of us that survive are lucky. Any one of us that survive are warriors. Any one of us that have been hurt by an adult that either beat us, yelled at us, screamed at us, sexually touched us in inappropriate ways, left us at home, we survived. We might be broken in parts, and it might have changed the way that we see the world and the way that we feel the world. But I promise you, there are people out there who genuinely love and will teach us to calm our nervous systems and learn to let some of this stuff go and find safe places within each other to be able to thrive again, surviving and thriving from trauma. It is real. We are not completely broken. We are just tethered, and we need someone to help us, the vessel to the light, and allowing us to heal those parts of us and healing that inner child and letting her know, I love you, I got you. When my mom is running around chasing people, which we only chase one, but some mothers chase lots of men, and some men chase lots of women, right? And forget about their kids, right? But the one thing I can tell myself, while I might have felt alone, I've got myself now. I can depend on me and only me. And the people that I allow and trust in my circle are sacred to me, and they should feel sacred, because those things should not be taken advantage of, nor should a young child or you should have been. So learning to love yourself and forget those parts and heal is where it goes. I'm Healing Hearts Trauma. I'm hoping I touch you in some form of way. Reach out, say hello, tell me your story, spread the content. I really appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.